So far, I've had a pretty good kind of run-of-the-mill, a few interesting things on a Thursday for me. Nothing super stressful, nothing super crazy, though. I certainly can't complain. Seth, how's it going up there in Minnesota? Just wrapped up a day of work, I assume?
I did. It's a beautiful day here in Minnesota. Sun shining, 72, almost no humidity. Some days practicing law is a lot, which, every job, if every job was always fun, someone would be doing it for free. But there are days, man, where it's just like, if I have to deal with one more criminal case, I'm going to lose it. So I'm just so glad to just stop talking about law stuff and just focus on football and I just really want to leave all that legal stuff behind.
Seth?
Yeah.
Bad news! We do have a legal update, and we do have our resident lawyer on hand for us here on this edition of Only Weird Games. Joshua Brisco and Seth Keysor. Nate Taylor of ESPN is on the move right now and anticipating a mid-episode joining up with him to get his side on the news of the day. Obviously, we are making the lawyerly Seth do a little bit of law in his football time here, as we've got real news for the first time in quite a while regarding Rashee Rice. Seth, I'm going to go ahead and just say that was the welcome, and we're going straight to the news now because it's not particularly fun, obviously, but it is new. It is very impactful on a few fronts for the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs, and also it's not going to be new information on what happened. It seems like we pretty much got the story on that buttoned up a pretty long while ago. But what happens now for Rashee Rice? We're on the move. So Adam Schefter was at least the first person who I saw with this news earlier today. I'm going to cite him directly, and then, Seth, you're going to explain how we got here. But Schefter tweeted earlier today on Thursday, ESPN sources, a Dallas County judge just sentenced Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice to 5 years probation and 30 days of jail time that can be served during those 5 years, stemming for his role in a multi-car crash in Dallas during the 2024 offseason. Now that the judge has ruled, the NFL can expedite its disciplinary process, and Rice is likely to receive a multi-game suspension. Schefter continues, Rashee Rice also received a deferred adjudication, so if he completes his probation successfully, the case will be dismissed. I understand that to be removed from his record effectively. And then Schefter again, with today's ruling from a Dallas County judge, the expectation now is that the Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice will serve his suspension during this upcoming season. NFL PR guy on the Rashee Rice case, quote, "We have been closely monitoring all developments in the matter, which remains under review." There is more on this. We do have a statement from Royce West and Rashee Rice. We got a few more details throughout the day from Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star regarding these civil cases also being settled up today for Rashee Rice. Seth, I know if people want to read all of that, if they want to read along, if you want to make sure you understand what's happening, Seth had a quick story, a story quickly, I should say. I don't have any reason to believe it was a quick process, at least it wouldn't have been for me, but a quick turnaround on a story about this in the Chief of the North newsletter, mnchiefsfan.substack.com, if you want to read Seth's thoughts on that. And Seth, I'll go ahead and note it so you don't have to. You practice law in Minnesota, not in Texas. This is a podcast, not legal advice. And you are here for informational and entertainment purposes. I don't know if that covers a cast a wide enough net, but you have a better chance of explaining this to the rest of us than anybody. Let me ask you this on the very front end, because it's the first question I had when I saw this news today. Were you surprised to get a essentially news dump quite this way? As we've gone through, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's been a year, maybe longer, since we've had a meaningful update in this story, or at least a very, very long time, many months. Comes out today as kind of a finished product. What happened there? Was that surprising to you at all?
The thing that surprises me the most starting out is we never got a criminal file number. We, as far as I can tell, there were never any hearings. And that's tough to do with criminal matters because generally speaking, those are public for a reason, right? I mean, we don't want shadow prosecutions going on. Like we'd like to know what's going on. So I'm not surprised in a sense that it all was wrapped up same day though. And what you see in some of the reporting, and again, I would urge people, listeners and watchers alike, to look at the article in the Chief of North newsletter, because I put all the information in one place. Multiple tweets, multiple documents. So the release from the county attorney's office, which is the prosecuting office, and then the court order in at least one of Rice's civil matters, which we'll get back to because those are two separate things that has been resolved. So there's the actual court order that contains the settlement agreement of the parties, the judge adopting it. So we can get to that too. It all happened at once, right? Now, that kind of explains why there was never a hearing, because from the sounds of it, Rice got an attorney immediately who contacted the county attorney's office and said, hey, here's the thing. My guy's not fighting this. He was there. He's on video. We all know it. We want to work with the victims. We know they're going to file a civil lawsuit. Let us figure out how much this is going to cost them. Let us figure out how we can make them whole best. We'll do all of these things. Let's just kick out that arraignment or first appearance over and over and over until we resolve those. And then at the same time, man, make me an offer. My guy's going to do this. He's probably had him do some kind of driver safety course that he filed in advance with the prosecution. All of those things. And so then when the civil matter kind of reaches a resolution, so in the meantime, his attorney, who seems to handle civil and criminal stuff, is part of a big firm. When they reach a resolution or a settlement in the civil case, okay, we've settled this. Hey, Mr. Prosecutor, we've settled this. I was wondering, is there anything my guy could do to keep this off his record? He'll do anything. And then you throw on your prosecutor's face. And so if I were the prosecutor in that situation, I'd say, well, I've looked at his criminal history. He doesn't have any other prior offenses here. We've got a few concerns, a few things that have happened here. The victims, our victim advocate tells us that they've racked up over $100,000 in out-of-pocket expenses. Your guy's got to pay that. Done. We will. And usually the way that works is they cut a check to the court, and then court administration sends that out. And so, okay, yeah, done. We'll do that in advance. Okay, because will that help? Will that help with a plea offer? Sure. Not just because it's money being paid to the victims, but because it's demonstrative of remorse. It's demonstrative of accountability. And one reason prosecutors will be willing to take plea agreements that involve restitution being paid up front is because it makes the victims whole sooner, as opposed to years-long litigation where the victims don't see a dime, right? My primary concern in a case that involves victims is that I want them to be made whole. That's more important than me, getting a certain conviction or proving to the public that I can win this, that, or the other thing. It's just about making people whole. So, okay, we'll pay that. Okay, well, look, your guy did something really stupid, really dangerous. I'm not letting him get out of here without pleading to at least one of the felonies, probably a couple of them. Okay, well, no, he'll plead to the felony. But could we do a stay of adjudication? Could we? And what they call is, I believe it's deferred probation. Every state has different terminologies for this. So here's what it means. And so something to check out is the county attorney's office, the prosecutors, released their own statement where they explain what he pled to. So he pled guilty to 2 third-degree felony charges, including collision involving serious bodily injury. And then the second count he pled guilty to is racing on a highway causing bodily injury. That causing bodily injury portion is a specific term that gets used for criminal matters that differentiates it. Like racing on a public street is probably a much lower level felony or a gross misdemeanor or a misdemeanor. But when you cause bodily injury, that's how it goes. You get charged more seriously. The law prosecutes you for what happened, not really what could have happened. And we've talked about this before, right? So this is gonna be the easiest thing to do because everyone's asked me, well, what does that mean? Mm-hmm. So in short, he pled to 2 felony counts. However, he was sentenced to 5 years, deferred probation with a number of conditions. Not all of them were listed there, that include, at the least, restitution for out-of-pocket expenses for the victims that he had to pay up front. That's already done. And 30 days probationary jail time. One of the questions people keep asking me, what's probationary jail time? People are like, oh, does that mean that's held over his head? Generally speaking, the term probationary jail time, and this is where it becomes, every case is a little different. Who knows? From the sounds of it here, that probationary jail time is the same way that we would use that here, which means it's part of your terms of probation. So let's say I have someone plead guilty to a felony domestic assault, and they've got a 21-month stayed sentence hanging over their head, meaning they're not going to go to prison for 21 months. They're going to be placed on probation, which, by the way, happens in the state of Minnesota until your 4th felony domestic assault, but I digress. It's sorry, that just makes me mad that anytime I talk about it, I bring it up. So the what I would say is, well, 21 months stayed, 90 days local jail time. That's a probationary jail sentence. It's part of your probationary terms. Usually, if someone's not in custody, they get what's known as a delayed report date. And so it's similar to all your other probation conditions. Okay, you need to report by September 1st. Probably not in this case, but let's say that's it. And then you don't report, a violation gets filed, a warrant gets issued, you get arrested. Now you got your 30 days to still sit, and a violation's been filed. You're probably going to get extra time. So that's what the probationary jail time means. The other thing here is, again, deferred prosecution is a slightly different term. In Minnesota, we call it a stay of adjudication. So here's where it's important to note, people that are trying to figure out what's going on here in terms of the legal aspect. When you get something that's like a stay of adjudication or deferred probation, it means you pled guilty. He offered a factual basis, gave up his Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, offered a factual basis, and pled guilty to those 2 felony counts, right? Then the judge, rather than adjudicating or convicting him, adjudicate is just a $2 word for a 1-cent concept. The judge making the official finding, right?
Judging.
Yeah, the judge, I adjudicate you guilty of the offense. So what a stay of adjudication is, exactly what it sounds like. The adjudication, the conviction, is stayed or held over your head for a period of time in which you're placed on probation, which means you're never technically convicted, even though you pled guilty. And then you've got 5 years, which is actually our probationary time on a lot of felonies here in Minnesota. For 5 years, you're placed on probation, usually supervised, with various conditions. The restitution he's already paid. They're probably going to ask him to do some, MAD panel stuff, or maybe some other safe driving stuff, offer, they've got impact panels that people appear at, things of that nature. Remain law-abiding, commit no same or similar offenses, maybe have no contact with the victims. I don't know. If you do all those things, then 5 years comes up, or let's say after 4 years, probation is like, hey, we're tired of supervising this guy. He's been great. Can we cut him loose a year early? That happens all the time in Minnesota. That conviction's never been entered, and it shows it gets dismissed. Ultimately, even though you pled guilty, you've now what that would show up on Minnesota's records would be dismissed, conditions met or expired. Okay,
interesting.
If there's no violation,
Right.
If there's a probation violation, then what happens is it's exactly what it sounds like. The court or the prosecutor files a probation violation. You got to come back to court, and the state, in my case, is extremely annoyed because you were given a big break on the front end. And now here's where it becomes important with a stay of adjudication. You've already pled guilty. So you've given up your right to a jury trial. You've given up your right to contest that you committed this offense. And now that guilty plea, that conviction can be adjudicated and dropped down on you. And you basically get sentenced all over again, this time under the actual felony. All that I'm pretty certain about, even with differing states operating differing ways. One thing, and I can slow down too, or I can, if you have questions, because I can stop and do that, because I think you might ask questions that people might think of that I wouldn't think of.
I was kind of coming in loaded with a few of those, but you've done a good job, I think, getting us through kind of that getting acclimated to all of the details of the day and everything. Okay. I guess this is sort of another subjective spin on it, but going back to the beginning of the way that this all came out, you said it's not surprising that you would get a resolution sort of presented and say, hey, we figured this all out. There's a plea deal, a plea agreements. We've lined it up with these civil cases also being settled.
Yep.
It's just the thing that I think had us wondering if we were going to hear anything before the season began was the fact, like you said, there was not a case number that we could ever find anywhere. When we were asking about criminal charges, we didn't know what the charges actually were. I remember having that conversation way back about bodily harm and the differentiating factor that meant. Right. I guess because there's a lot more within the statements and even more details in the weeds and in the newsletter. Was there anything else from this that surprised you at all, or that seemed in any way kind of out of the norm? Or, as I think a lot of this has been, it seems, please correct me if this is a poor summary, but it seems like a lot of this was just stuff getting handled behind the scenes. And I don't know that this is connected, but Jordan Addison also had his DUI figured out today.
Terrific announcement timing by Jordan Addison's legal team. Bravo.
I don't
done.
Know.
Just
I don't know. I don't know if the NFL has like hey, mid-July, we need to know what we're rolling with here, or we're just going to start suspending or something. I have no idea. We'll come back to the suspension side. I know that's the obvious next question, but before we let Seth remove the lawyer hat from his head, then we'll put on the NFL hat next. Sure. That's the kind of the last catch-all for me. Is anything in here surprising other than the fact that it was kept so quiet this entire time? Anything stand out as a real oddity?
Nothing really too odd to me. There are a couple things I see. A really good question here from Iced Pyro asking, as a prosecutor, do you ever reach out to the victims before you decide on a plea deal? All the time. All the time. Virtually any case that involves victims, especially in domestic cases, you actually legally are obligated to in Minnesota. You always at least let them know what you're doing. Depending on the case, sometimes you really want them to sign off. It's almost never a necessity. Honestly, in the world of criminal prosecution, victims vacillate between one of two types. You've got the types that want you to have the person decapitated and shot into the sun, and you've got the person that is outraged that you ever charged them. That's it. Those are the two 99% of the time types of victims that you have in cases, and there's a lot of reasons to that, okay? But especially given the civil case resolved at the same time, I would bet my house that the county attorney's office was in communication. Every county attorney's office, even one that I work in with a little county, we've got a victim coordinator that we reach out to them. Hey, here's, you got to fill out this affidavit for restitution. How much do you need? How do you feel about this? That's maybe where some of the jail time came from, where, it's like, hey, we'd like to see him sit a little time in jail just to kind of like, hey, you play dumb games, win dumb prizes, all that kind of stuff. So that's almost certainly occurred. One thing I do want to respond to is that not much of this surprises me. Now, again, I work in Minnesota, okay? And Minnesota is a relatively lenient state when it comes to criminal sentencings. But I will say, and I see someone had commented, and I'm not going to say who, because I think this is being, they're coming by this honest. It says, I'm so torn, love my Chiefs, hate seeing the rich get away with felonies. I would just say nothing about the disposition of this case is, well, because he's rich. The only thing that's different about this case is that victims will actually get made whole. Mm-hmm. The monetary amounts and that kind of stuff, if someone had that kind of out-of-pocket expenses, that amount of restitution would get ordered all the time. The difference would be if it's, Joe Smith who can't pay it, it just never happens. We call those people judgment proof, right? Sure, the court says they have to pay you, but you don't have the money. So with first-time offenders, with this type of offense, something like a stay of adjudication is not at all uncommon. It's actually quite common. I was sending a message to a mutual friend of yours and mine, Josh, who will remain nameless because I gave him a really hard time in the message about how I'm a better attorney than he is. But anyway, what I told him is I've probably done a few hundred stays of adjudication over the course of 11 years. And a lot of it is based on how the defendant handles it. whether or not they're taking responsibility, whether I think that's sincere, what the victim wants, what the conduct was, right? And then, their criminal history, their age. I'm less likely to give a stay of adjudication to a 40-year-old than I am a 20-year-old because you're 40. You should know better, dude. So there's just a lot of factors that come into it. I have seen the results of a stay of adjudication be anything from, hey, it went perfectly, it gets dismissed, everyone's happy, to that person ended up in prison for years. Because I always make a record at sentencing, at least I try to, saying some version of, Your Honor, the state would just like to note that this is an opportunity for Mr. Smith, we'll continue to use that name, to keep this off his record. He's getting a good agreement here. He's getting a chance. If this were to come back at violation status, the state would likely be pretty harsh or punitive. I'd probably use an actual $2 word. But the point there being, you get a break on the front end, and usually on the back end, most prosecutors have no patience for that. Because no, you got a break. And it's not just you got a break you didn't go to prison and the stay time hung over your head. You got an opportunity to keep this off your record and not have it ruin your life. You got a shot. And I might rant in Rashee Rice's general direction at some point with that, but I think I've ranted enough there. But this is you're 22 and you almost not only ruined your life, but you almost killed some people. Learn, be better. You're not on an island. You're not doing this alone. There's other people that are affected by your actions. So just learn. And hopefully that's what he does. And I've said that to many defendants, and some of them do great and they go on to be fine. Some of them, I see them a month later and it's the same old story. And then, then it just becomes consequences and protecting society from your failure to do the right thing. So there's nothing really unusual with it. The good thing here is that Rice has the means to make people whole, because let me just tell you, I've worked criminal vehicular issues way worse than this case many times in the last 5 years, and no one ever gets made whole from those things. And so here is one of those things. Had he and his buddy been street racing and they each just crashed, probably end up with a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor. But because people got hurt, yeah, it's a felony. And it should be. And that's the way the law works. Sometimes you get prosecuted based on the bad luck that was foreseeable from your actions. So let's say, you're walking down the street, some guy bothers you, and Josh, you've got a bad temper, you punch him in the face. Well, that's a misdemeanor assault. You punch him in the face and he falls, cracks his head on the sidewalk and dies. Now you're probably charged with manslaughter, maybe depending on the state, maybe some kind of second-degree murder type thing, even without intent, because second-degree murder can have malicious conduct stuff. It doesn't matter. The point is, that's just bad luck, right? Had there been a cat in the way, and the cat was fine, by the way. Not
Thank
to horrify.
God. This has been bleak enough.
And it shielded the person's head. You did all the same stuff, right? Your actions were completely the same, and you got lucky. So that's how the law works. It punishes what happened, and it assumes that you understand that you assumed the risk when you did this course of conduct. That's the criminal side. It's not really that surprising, the deal that he got. Fans of other teams are going to insist it's just because he's rich. Come to Minnesota sometime, and I'll show you. I'll show you so many people that aren't going to prison for so many worse things. You know what? I almost just bummed everyone out because I was going to start listing off things.
Yeah, no, I could see. No. I saw just the glimmer of just two cogs started turning in there, and that's a section of your brain we try not to let turn during the podcast.
Yeah, share my misery, etc. The civil stuff, and again, check it out on the Chief North newsletter. This is unlocked, by the way. I'm not looking to benefit from talking about someone's legal stuff.
Seth, if you ever would have had a desire to make money off of practicing law, you could have done a lot of things different in your life.
Nick Bromberg with Yahoo Sports, he actually tracked down the judgment in one of the civil cases. And this is where I'm a little confused because my understanding is there were approximately 5 or 6 civil cases. I don't know if they all got combined into one.
And just real quick, Matt Derrick tweeted earlier that Fox 4 Dallas reported that he has paid restitution to the victims involved in the crash. The deal also concludes all 6 civil lawsuits filed against Rice.
Right. And
So does
so
that
I
build
don't,
up together? Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if this judgment that's public is resolving all 6 or if there are 5 other identical resolutions. Basically, the resolution of this one, and what it is, it's a settlement. People hear that all the time, right? It's one of the few things that like lawyer television gets correct. Is most judges with civil stuff, if the parties can come to an agreement, a judge is going to be like, cool, that sounds great. Now I don't have to decide exactly, was this worth $800,000 or $20 million? Like it's so hard to know these things. So that the resolution we see there is that Rice is paying attorney's fees. He's paying, I think it was like a $75,000 expense of some sort, and then $1 million judgment. Now, I don't know if there's 5 more just like that. And then they tacked on, and I thought this was kind of interesting. There's an interest of 7.5% interest amount tacked on to the judgment. My guess, you got to remember, Rashee Rice was not a early first round pick.
Right.
Rice doesn't have $6 million laying around. So he'll go on some kind of payment plan, and then they'll actually collect a little bit of interest in the meantime, unless that interest is more of a punitive thing if he doesn't make his payments. And then, boy, is that guy motivated to get a really good second contract because he's going to be paying it out. So that resolved that one case. I don't know because there's an intervener in that case, which I'm not going to go too far down a rabbit hole other than to say that just means a third party's in it. So I don't know if he's got just the one case, if he's got all 6 cases wrapped into one, or if he's got like 5 other judgments that are just like this. Either way, it's over to an extent, right? He's going to be paying for this mistake for a long time, which, by the way, some mistakes you pay for a long, long time. Every day we make choices, and those choices determine how things go for us. And so that's what his life is going to be a little bit worse for a long time. And you know what? That's fair. That's fair. He also, as a 22-year-old, has an opportunity to keep a felony off his record where he wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was stupid and selfish and dangerous. But you know what? He wasn't trying to hurt anyone. He was just stupid, selfish. That's fair too. So you give someone a shot, see how it goes. That's all resolved now. None of this is anything that I would find particularly unusual. And this is probably, and I said this in the newsletter, this is an offer I would have made. If I had someone come and say, look, my client feels like a jackwagon. He'll do whatever it takes. And I would be pretty skeptical and be like, yes, now that he's been caught, we saw him on camera running away from the accident. Yes, I know.
No one other than me says jackwagon.
Yeah, also true. And so, it's an offer I would have made provide with the circumstances that are set here, whether the guy played football or not. The most important thing for me, the victims are getting made whole. They're getting their out-of-pocket expenses taken care of. They're going to get a judgment to kind of deal with. A lot of people like to laugh at like pain and suffering settlements because we've all heard stories of ridiculous amounts and that kind of stuff. But I would just say, just imagine, you're driving in your family van, minding your own business, and just get wrecked out of nowhere. That is scary. That does take a toll. It scares you. It scares your kids. It makes it hard to drive in the future. Those things do matter. And it's both punitive for the guy who was a moron, and it's restorative because you know what would make me, honestly, if someone T-boned me at an intersection and I got hurt, but not like crazy hurt, I would feel a lot better if someone gave me $1 million. I'd be like, okay, I'm still pretty upset. I wish it hadn't happened, but this $1 million, I feel a little better. Like I do feel better. So I think I've summed up everything. I think I've summed up from the legal side. I've given out deals worse than this. I've given out deals better than this. So if someone wants to say, it's just because he'd be in prison. That's just not how this would work. If he made $1 a year, the guy wouldn't be in prison for this. That's just not how this works.
I think we may end up getting joined by the one and only Nate Taylor on the other side of a little timeout. And we'll talk about where the suspension currently lands. A little bit of reporting earlier today on what's next for Rashee Rice. We'll talk about that after the break.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your #1 source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to, and I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust, and I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible, and they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
Folks, there's nothing that beats relaxing on a hot summer day and watching some baseball. And there's no simpler way to get in on the action than by downloading the Pick 6 app from DraftKings. It's crazy simple. Just pick more or less on the stats for 2 or more of your favorite players, and boom, you're in the mix for big cash prizes. And the best part, Pick 6 is available right here in Missouri. Don't miss out on the fun. Don't settle for a smaller payout. Switch to Pick 6, and right now, new customers can get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Here's what you got to do. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use code KCSN. That's code KCSN for new customers to get $25 in bonus picks with their first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Void where prohibited. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Bonus picks expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
We may be, this is an Only Weird Games injury report. We may be in the period of a pregame sort of warm-up where a player's out there. You say, well, you can see him trying to get some work, cutting on that ankle on the field, and then ultimately then being inactive anyway. That may be the fate of Nate Taylor today, as he's on the road. He's on the road, and I don't want to say exactly where he's at. He may say it as soon as if he's on. Some of this great nation's airports aren't prepared to give you enough bandwidth to co-host a podcast. So we may end up, Seth, I'll tell you what, I'm really glad you were here today, because this is a Seth episode in a lot of ways. I, of course, want to know where Nate is seeing the suspension direction headed. But let me go ahead and restate something I said at the top of the show, and then add in one bit of info from Matt Derrick as we kind of pivot from the sentencing into the suspension for Rashee Rice. As I mentioned earlier, Adam Schefter tweeted today, with today's ruling from a Dallas County judge, the expectation now is that Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice will serve his suspension during this upcoming season. Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest wrote that, he said, I've been told by sources in the organization the Chiefs believe Rashee Rice may get a suspension of 2 to 4 games. Whether that is optimistic, I can't tell you for sure. Matt later also clarified what's I'll expand on it. Essentially my official stance at this point, which is that we will find out how many games Rashee Rice will be suspended when the NFL good and tells us. That there is a pretty enormous array of ranges and punishments that the league has handed down over the years. We have some things that are kind of similar, vehicle crashes and DUIs and some things like that you can kind of use as a similar circumstance, but also sometimes the NFL appears to take the final legal rulings into account, and sometimes they don't really seem to. I think it's fascinating, and I'm taking Matt's tweet. I'm taking both of those tweets as useful information, but you got to make sure you are hearing the right things from these bits of information. Schefter says the expectation is that he will serve his suspension during the 2025 NFL season. Matt is saying that sources in the Chiefs organization are expecting 2 to 4 games. That is not Matt or the NFL telling you it's 2 to 4 games, and Matt's even clarifying there. maybe his source in the organization is being optimistic on the 2 to 4 game side. Maybe it's going to be 4 to 8. I'd be pretty surprised if it was anything beyond 8 games and less than 2. So, I mean, I feel like you can maybe throw just vibes based. You could throw a 2 to 8 game range in there, but sometimes the NFL even kind of sidesteps that. So, with all that being said, Seth, anything on the suspension front that you find terribly interesting? I'm not going to ask you to predict what happens because we aren't in that kind of loop.
Right. One thing that's worth noting is the NFL's mandatory minimum 6-game suspension stuff relates to assault or battery behavior.
Good clarification.
And because I saw someone tweeting out and kind of well, no, people got hurt. Assault and battery those are terms of art in the legal field, and I assume in the NFL's policy as well. That's where I am hitting you. I am pointing a weapon at you. I am, you know what I mean?
Yep. That's
assault. Battery is punching someone, kicking someone, biting someone, such things like that. Please don't bite people, by the way. So that's not going to apply. There have been a few different circumstances where people have gotten involved in car crashes or DWIs, like you said, that involve usually somewhere between 1 to 4 game suspensions. You can't use people. I think would immediately go to Henry Ruggs. I mean, there's a reason he went to prison,
right?
A felony DWI where someone dies. That's an entirely, again, the law punishes what happened, right. And the Shield does to an extent too. So that's not really the Shield kind of ended up with we don't really have to do anything because the man's going to go to prison for a while. So that's not really an analogous situation. There's been a few analogous situations where players have been involved in car wrecks that caused some property damage, maybe even small injuries. Here, he did plead to causing some kind of serious injury. I would note usually serious and great are a couple of different delineations, great being the worst in terms of bodily injury. So I couldn't guess. And I'm glad you told me not to. And then I started to speculate. It's just one of those things where the Shield just does whatever it wants. And I just hope that with this case done now, or all the cases done, they just make a decision quickly. I do think Winston makes a good point in the comments. He says, I also think it matters that it isn't a hot news cycle anymore. The Shield really has a DV issue and punishes those issues harshly, but car wrecks aren't on the same level. I absolutely agree. The Shield is concerned about the image of the Shield. And that's the entire purpose for a work punishment.
Right.
Because, I mean, really, in a lot of jobs, you could get charged with a crime and convicted of a crime and nothing's going to happen to you at work.
Right.
But when you are a public figure and you kind of represent the Shield, there's a conduct policy that you've agreed to. So that's why the NFL even gets involved in the first place. Think of that what you will. I understand why they do it, and they kind of have to from a PR perspective. But you know what? You told me not to. I'm going to anyway. I think they.
Why?
I don't know. I think they do 3, give or take.
Okay, great. Thanks for throwing a dart. What I was going to add is I believe. Oh God, Nate. We're going to have Nate in let's say 30-second countdown here for both Tucker and Nate. The one thing that I'll add here as we get the next part set. The NFL ought to know exactly what they want to do with Rashee Rice. They should have known this. They should have known this a year ago.
Yes.
Especially now, nothing happened today that would be so outside of the expectations that there'd be any sort of doubt or question of, well, we were going to do 4, but now should we check? My hope, and there's not a lot of hoping in this situation. My hope is that it's just soon. Announce it tomorrow if you've got it tomorrow. Announce it on Monday if you want to wait until Monday. Announce it by training camp would certainly be my preference. Now, You're going to look at the beginning of the season, and the Chiefs have some really big games really early on, but those are things that we'll probably talk about when the suspension does actually come down. Let's go ahead and do our best to bring in Nate Taylor of ESPN. And I will say, Nate, it appears that the big 4 letters of the mothership do not make you immune to airport delays.
I don't know if anything makes you immune to airport delays, given our current state of affairs with air traffic control and the shortage of, air traffic controllers. It's hot out here, so, older planes are breaking down, boys and girls. Happy to be here. I don't know if my video's working. I can hear myself.
Great. Yeah, all
Can
good.
You hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It looks
we'll see.
Nate, it looks and sounds like the best the best thing you've probably been a part of today, given the day it sounds like you've had.
Correct. So, yeah, let's just jump right in. I know what Adam Schefter said today about 6 games. I've obviously been hearing you guys for a little bit behind the scenes.
Sorry, I don't know what Schefter said about 6 games. Where did 6 games from Schefter come from?
That came from NFL Live.
On the,
I just
television, on the mothership. Fantastic.
Yeah. So that just came from the TV. You know, I wasn't really supposed to be working today. I just wanted to go home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So thanks.
But Schefter, is Schefter circling 6 games as the most likely number, or what was the? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah. So let me double check, or let me provide some clarity. I believe that number probably came from someone within the NFL, right? I don't know that to be sure. Again, I've been on the phone with American Airlines more than I've been on the phone with my family or friends, let alone coworkers.
Yeah.
So I think the league is probably positioning that 6 games feels appropriate, right? Feels substantial. I know on NFL Live a little bit ago, they just showed, hey, here are the first 6 games for the Chiefs schedule. Okay, now that becomes a precedent question as to whether or not those 6 games are equal to like the 6 games Charles Omenihu got, right? Which the NFL kind of has to go back and forth on those things. But ultimately, as I said before, and we'll say continuously, it really comes down to Roger Goodell. Second thing is player union. I don't know if you guys have kept track, kids. Whoo, buddy. So it would be great if Rashee Rice got 4 games. In my mind, 4 games has been about the satisfactory destination for both parties, with the Players Association, with the league. Hey, you're not going to start the season on the field. That was the biggest sort of public image issue when you've already had the player. And I know you guys, discussed this earlier. You already have the player apologizing and admitting some level of guilt while also being on camera, and this legal situation being dragged out longer than usual in a state that, sure, Texas, just say Texas, just Texas, and then you include Dallas and all the tentacles from that as it associates to the Chiefs and who pays their checkbooks. So look, I don't know. Hope, does that all make sense? Man, my brain is everywhere.
It makes as much sense as you're gonna have any hope of giving to us today. Look, you told me something that said that I didn't know yet.
Yeah, so if you're a Chiefs fan, you should really say, let's prepare myself for 4, worst case scenario 6. Now, if I read, and I've read this before, and I don't want to reference it now, but if you read the actual things that with no conviction, with this sort of agreement, tell me if I'm right, Seth, based on me reading the player conduct policy and trying to, quickly read everything that we've read today from Mr. Royce, from obviously the Dallas County Prosecutor's Office, he put people in danger. Does that mean he caused danger? And that's the distinction, that if you cross that threshold, did he cause damage to people? That's usually 6. But in a sense, his biggest issue is that this was on camera and that it was embarrassing, and he fled the scene and he had to acknowledge all that. I could argue either way, but there's a reason why Adam Schefter today said 6 games is a possibility, because I think that's what the league would like to see done. I think the Players Association would say, well, if we're going to use precedent of some kind, we would like it to be 4 games.
That makes sense to me. We did, this entire show has been mostly Seth on the legal side, and then just dipping our toe into the suspension here a little bit. I do kind of want to get your guys' quick thoughts on a little bit of George Karlaftis hashtag rumblings from a couple days back.
Oh yeah.
Is there anything else, Nate, that strikes you as even like worth sharing here? I mentioned that Matt Derrick said he had somebody in the organization that was looking at the 2 to 4 game range. Do you have any feel? Did the Chiefs know that they were going to get this? I would imagine the Chiefs are probably in the loop. Yes, there was going to be a resolution on this, even though we weren't. Anything in there that you find interesting?
Yeah. So shout out to Matt. I think the Chiefs would like 4 games. They would shout to the heavens if it was somehow 2 games. I don't see 2 games just because. Now again, those 2 games are quite significant. Divisional opponent in Brazil, Super Bowl rematch. You're not going to be on that stage.
These first 4 games are Chargers, Eagles, at Giants, Ravens, at Jags.
Yeah. So
sort of at Chargers. That's the road game, right? But,
yeah. I mean, again, I think if I had to make an educated guess right now, I would say 4. And I think that's what the Chiefs are anticipating as well. Inferring with a number of people, it's like 2 to 4 would be great. 4 would be tolerable or appropriate or measured. And then the NFL is like, well, hey man, your dude was out to win. He was out in the wind for over a year. And he could have played more games if he hadn't gotten hurt. And we had to wait this long for the punishment anyway. And I know Seth has gotten into the strange ways that this all got concluded, I'm sure. Is that fair, Seth?
It's been a long day, man.
Yeah. Yes, it has. You're telling me, buddy. So again, I would guess 4 at this point. I know the biggest thing you probably said is like he's not going to serve major jail time, but the financial implications of this, he's not clean from that either.
Right.
And so the more games he gets suspended, more of that money is not necessarily guaranteed, but it's he's still under quite a bit of
his
pressure.
Attorney 1,000,000%, because I understand they've got a union, but it's not like he can't hire private counsel to represent him as well. And again, there's other stuff going on with the union right now that I'm just too tired to talk about.
Just wild.
If I were his attorney, and by the way, defense attorneys argue this all the time with regards to jail sentences as opposed to, like suspensions. Mm-hmm. If I was attorney, I'd be telling the league, every game you suspend him, his plan now is to take 3/4 of that paycheck and pay it to the victims. You're taking money out of the victims' pockets. Why would you do that?
Correct.
And I mean, I sure would hate to have to just put out a statement that we're really disappointed in the league's decision, that this was Mr. Rice's plan, and he's really disappointed he won't be able to do it, but he's excited to try to be able to make things right when he can. Man, that would be a bummer, Roger, but because Roger's always dealing with people that he has power over. Right. Royce West is not an individual he has power over.
And I imagine those conversations are occurring as we speak.
Yep. Why would you? I can't make money if I'm there. I also prosecute our child support contempt cases, and so we'll get guys that are $20,000 in arrears, and I'm just like, well, look, we stayed 90 days a while ago. I'm gonna have you sit some time so you can think about what you did. Well, how am I supposed to pay when I'm in jail? It's like, well, you haven't paid for 3 years, so I don't know what to tell you. That's the conversation that his attorney would be having right now. I'm guessing the league is more like, oh man, that is terrible, but we do have to,
fine.
It'll all be fine.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, it sounds like your client needs to play awesome down the stretch to where the Chiefs feel the need to extend him after 3 years instead of 2.
Correct.
Or instead of 4.
Yes, right. Yeah.
This show, as of 10 a.m. this morning, was going to be about George Karlaftis, and we are in danger right now of just saying Tuesday's show will be about George Karlaftis, because nothing has actually happened there. I want to hit a piece of news on a player who is no longer with the team, but it is actually news that we don't talk about it right now. We're not going to talk about it on Tuesday. I would imagine the Chiefs have waived Justin Ross. We are going to go to St. Joe without the incumbent training camp darling. We're going to have to pick a few new ones to fall in love with in training camp. One report, I think it may have been from Tom Pelissero, clarified that Justin Ross asked for his release from the Chiefs.
Yep.
Because my first thought was, wait, what? They waived him on July 16th? I mean, OTAs have happened. Some offseason activities have happened. What, do they have a move? Right now, the Chiefs still have 89 players on their 90-man roster, unless I've missed something, which I don't think I have.
Sounds about right.
They still have that spot. It wasn't that they moved on. My guess is here, please correct me if it seems wrong, Nate, but it appears that Justin Ross said, hey, I've been around. doesn't seem like this is going to be the year I break into the rotation here. So go ahead and let me go find the new home. I'll go latch on somewhere. Maybe it's thinner at wide receiver, latch on there for their training camp instead of getting cut at the end of training camp and spending another year on the Chiefs practice squad. So the Chiefs do release Justin Ross, and he cleared waivers today. I believe he's now free to choose the next destination. Anything to add there, Nate, on how that went down?
Yeah, and again, I think people talk. We found out today Mike Williams is retiring, right?
Yeah.
And so, agents talk amongst themselves, and so they understand like kind of the ins and outs of what's going on with rosters before training.
He's going to be starting. He's going to be starting for the Chargers in week 16, and Justin Herbert's going to be throwing passes to him and Quentin Johnston. That's what's going to. Like I just put it together. That's what's happening, right? Like. Why can't Justin Herbert ever win a big game? His number 1 and number 2 receivers are Quentin Johnston and Justin Ross because Ladd McConkey's hurt or whatever. I don't know.
I could. You could see that. I'm just saying there will be injuries in training camp. You also have to remember too, like Andy Reid's training camp is one of, if not the gruelingest in the NFL. So if you're not going to make the roster, if you don't like your odds, your body will have better opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah.
Now he had issues with mental errors and not expanding his skill set to what the Chiefs were asking him to do. He had his own legal issue at one point in time that really halted his progress in his career. So, new scenario, new so you wish him the best. His body's been through so much between the neck and the foot. So it's a grueling sport, but I could see him on this. I'm just spitballing, guys. Obviously the Chargers, the Colts. He could be on the Ravens for all I know.
They have it. Is Deontay Johnson currently on a roster?
Nope.
Oh, he's not. Okay.
I don't think so.
I think something else weird happened.
Gabe Davis isn't on a roster. So look, all of this is really, it just tells you how quickly the league can get away from you at a skill position that talented when there's new guys coming in every year. But I'm interested to see where he goes, and who knows? The Cleveland Browns need receivers, right? They got about 5 quarterbacks,
including Deontay Johnson.
Oh, they did? Come on. Yeah. When did that happen?
I just saw a Reddit post from about a month ago that says Browns wide receiver Deontay Johnson admitted he refused to enter a game in 41-degree weather last year in Baltimore because he felt, quote, ice cold. This is his 3rd AFC North team.
What is he doing?
Get on the Bradley Beal plan if you need to, dude. You want to go play in warm weather places? Like, go do that, I guess, if that's what's keeping you. Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Jesus.
Well, I apologize for every time I inferred that the Chiefs should have signed Deontay Johnson. I simply wasn't familiar with this part of his game. I just didn't know. The Chiefs knew. They didn't do it. I didn't know.
Game. And remember I said he wanted to stay on the East Coast, and then that didn't matter anymore. What a player. what a player. So no, I must have missed that while changing a diaper and being on vacation.
Yeah, sorry. Understandable. He might not be there for long.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, hard to bet on. Seth, on the Justin Ross front, I don't expect you to have a weepy goodbye, but it's kind of an interesting little lesson to look back on. I'll do this. As Justin Ross is no longer a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was always a good gamble for exactly what the Chiefs anteed on him. An undrafted free agent to bring in a guy who had unusual flashes before really a couple of serious injuries in college. I think he always made sense as a 90-man roster spot for a little while in there. You went, ooh, maybe. And he just, never got any higher than that in my book. Any lessons to be learned on the Justin Ross experience, Seth?
I hope he does well wherever he goes. I think something to learn as fans is the height and weight of a player are not, just because someone's 6'4" doesn't mean they're an X receiver. And look, I wrote about him multiple times because people wanted to read about him, and he did show having a specific skill set doesn't mean anything if it doesn't come through consistently. And like, just because you can do something doesn't mean a lot if it doesn't happen. And, fit matters. If he goes to an offense that's maybe a little more, posts, fades, 9 routes, that kind of stuff, throwing the ball up to him, I'd have some success there. And I hope he does. So, that's just something. Also, you have to change your analysis on a player after the college level.
Yeah.
I call this the Trevor Lawrence syndrome. Because so many people that I respect.
You're naming a syndrome after him already? I'm not sure you're wrong. I know where you're going.
So many people I respect. And I think Justin Ross and Trevor Lawrence were teammates in college.
Correct.
Trevor Lawrence is super traitsy.
The Clemson syndrome?
Yeah. Dorian O'Daniel, what is happening? And so you got to be willing to change your analysis.
Remember when he was going to change the game?
Yeah. I still think he might.
And
remember when Dorian O'Daniel was like, "Oh, those running backs that you worried about, they're covered." He lays to him. He never got a chance to cover those running backs.
No, I would just say that no matter how much you like a player coming out of college or how much you hate a player coming out of college, once they've put on film who they are as a pro, yes, still keep their traits in mind, but for how many years should that be controlling? After that first year, that should matter more than what you saw that player in college. When Chris Jones was a better pro than a college player starting like year 1. And I still had people tell me, I don't know how much this will translate. I'm like, I'm watching it translate every week. And so be willing to adjust and adapt to where, what things look like now rather than what they looked like 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Right. And remember, the game, the two games are like an accordion, right? They can come really close together. RPO 2017, Nick Foles pulls out his what and leads the Eagles to a Super Bowl because the NFL had become a little more college-like-y, a little more spread-like-y. And then because linebackers are 220 now, it's starting to spread out again, boys, where it's like, I don't know, that college game is not the same as the NFL game. So we're just constantly doing this. Think about Christina Hendricks in season 1 or season 2 of Mad Men. The never looked at an accordion again the same way. So
I don't know what you're referencing. I'm just here going.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's
Am I getting in trouble? Like Google this? How do I Google this?
No. Christina Hendricks is I mean, that's a no, you're fine. You're fine.
I don't like the dismount on that, man. What did she do with an accordion?
The dismount is I have a lot of love and respect and admiration for Christina Hendricks in particular in Mad Men. But anytime I think of an accordion, she is like the first thing I think about. I don't know who the most famous accordion player is.
So she just actually does. She actually does and can play.
She plays it. Yes,
and she's the most famous accordion player you can think of.
That
Fantastic.
I know. Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. I don't know another one. I guess Weird Al would have been my pick. Feel free to Google him too. You won't get in any trouble there.
Oh, obviously.
I didn't watch Mad Men. Should I watch Mad Men, Nate? You think that holds up?
You really should.
Really?
Cool, buddy. You want to know how America works?
Okay.
And given today's particular trending topic about workplace things, you should definitely watch Mad Men.
Okay.
Didn't know we were going to get
the episode where Don Draper brings his HR exec to a Coldplay concert is a great
Woo! Woo! I'll tell you what, if this show wouldn't have been so dang serious, that might have been off-season lessons.
Can I?
That is an off-season lesson. Hey, y'all.
The guy, I'm sorry. This CEO.
Everyone's probably seen this video now. If you haven't, there was a scene at a Coldplay concert. I think last night. It moves fast.
They had a kiss cam type stuff.
Exactly. They're taking shots of different people in the crowd, and they hone in on a very in love sort of middle-aged couple there.
Very cozy.
So happy.
Very very cozy until they see themselves on the screen. In which case he
horror
the deck. And she turns away from the camera, and then Chris Martin called it out.
Yep. And
can I almost like he was Peyton Manning? Like, yep, they're switching. They're switching.
Yep.
Can I
read? Boys, that's zone.
Omaha.
This guy issued a statement.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay,
Of
this is the
course you
outro.
did.
Nate, don't even sweat the outro today. Seth got the outro. We're about to hit an hour.
Take us home, Seth.
I'll take you guys home, and you'll know Tucker. So I want to ignore, and remember, this dude's a CEO, and that was his HR director that he was with. This married man, love
tough
the
seats.
wife of your youth. Come on. I want to acknowledge the moment that's been circulating online and the disappointment it's caused. What was supposed to be a night of music and joy has turned into a deeply personal mistake playing out on a very public stage. I want to sincerely apologize to my wife, my family, and the team and astronomer. You deserve better from me as a partner, as a father, and as a leader. This is not who I want to be, how I want to represent the company I've helped build. I'm taking time to reflect, to take accountability. We're going to circle back to that, everyone. And figure out the next steps personally and professionally. I ask for privacy as I navigate that process. No one
Please
cares,
respect my
Andy.
privacy.
No one cares, Andy Byron, that you want privacy, you slut. All right? No, this is why I'm reacting this way, okay? I also want to express, by the way, I'm talking to the dude here, the husband.
Yeah, no, Andy. Yeah,
Obviously.
Man, whoremongering.
Chat, clip it.
Yeah. I also want to express, and this is why I'm mad. Well, I'm mad for a number of reasons. Marriage is sacred, but whatever. I also want to express how troubling it is that what should have been a private moment became public without my consent. I respect artists and entertainers, but I hope we can all think more deeply about the impact of turning someone else's life into a spectacle. Bro, I hope you have a friend that reads that and knocks you out because you deserve it. And ladies and gentlemen, because I'm going to bring it into all of this, had Rashee Rice apologized that way, straight to prison. Straight to prison.
Nate, earlier today, Seth said, I have a temper.
What a loser. Honest to God. Andy Byron, you suck.
Hey, Randy, before you put the